Get Grayson's grade. Professor Grayson, got a chance to see him yesterday. He was up at the Countdown to Kickoff show at Tollman Joe's. And, of course, he was at the Eagles game in the locker room after the game. And his grades are up right now at 97.3ESPN.com. What's up, Scott? Happy birthday.
Yeah, thank you very much, Mike. I appreciate that.
Yeah, man. And your perspective, a game that they win, does it feel like a positive bye week moving forward? Does it still feel like a lot of questions need to be answered at the bye week?
No, I feel like the bye week is coming at a good time. I think there definitely are questions that need to be answered, and namely, who's your deep threat? It's the question that's been asked since week one. And I think Doug basically left the door open to the fact that it's a question that could be lingering for some time. So who's your deep threat? And I don't know that person is on the roster right now. I kind of referenced that a little bit in the grades down below. But I think that it's a good time for a bye week because I really do feel like this team and Doug does a really good job of dissecting and self-scouting. And that happens on the bye week where you look back at yourself, you look back at your team. Each player looks back at themselves and says, where can I get better? What could I do better? With their position coaches, and I think a lot of these guys are going to pull out some positive things that they can fix. So I think it's a good time for a bye week, and I expect them to come out fighting hard here in the remaining 7 games that are left.
Give me your take on the whole DeSean Jackson thing yesterday. I was following you on Twitter that he was out there warming up. I mean, it didn't seem like it was much of a surprise that he was going to play, but knowing what happened now and how it all kind of seemingly has gone down, what do you think of the decision to activate him yesterday?
I think it was fun. I think, more than anything, I think DeSean needed to see that DeSean wasn't going to be great. Because without surgery, there's only so much that his body can do to repair this damage. And he doesn't want the surgery. He doesn't want to deal with surgery. He didn't want to miss the time from surgery. But the fact is, had he had surgery, he probably would have been back at 100% by now. So now they're sitting there going, okay, DeSean, this might be what you are for the rest of this season unless you choose to do something about this. And like Doug said, it's his choice. And I think that was a message. Like, the team wants you to do this. And if you do it now, maybe you can be back in the playoffs and help this team and get to the playoffs at this point, which is not a given. So I read into all of that like, hey, and I kept thinking, look, DeSean might only be out there for 10 to 15 snaps, more just anything to get out there, run around a little bit, maybe catch 1 or 2 passes, be a decoy at times. But he didn't even get that far. And I think that's a statement on where he is at this point and how I don't think you can catch him the rest of the season.
Yeah, so I guess if you were to grade the receiving core at the bye week, I mean, what are we looking at here? Because Doug indicated today there could be some changes, I guess, at that spot. I mean, what do we think moving forward with that position?
Yeah, I mean, I saw that too, and it made me puzzled because I'm thinking, well, look, the time to really rectify that problem was about a week ago with Howie before the trade deadline. Now your options are very limited. You're looking at you're going to kick the tires on Antonio Brown, but who knows? What are you going to do at that spot? I don't know. I mean, to me, they keep trying to force Nelson Aguilar to be the guy who runs downfield. But, I gave him a D because I'm tired of seeing Nelson Aguilar run downfield and with his only goal being not to catch the ball but to draw pass interference and then look around like, didn't you guys see that? He harassed me. He's not a deep threat. He's not the guy who's going to do it. And I don't think they have anybody on the roster who can be that guy. And quite frankly, without that, you want to look at it further. Why did the Eagles struggle in the third quarter offensively? I think it's because at halftime, the Bears went in there and said, okay, guys, we were preparing to face an offense with DeSean Jackson, and now we don't have that. And they adjusted accordingly, and look what it did to the Eagles. So, I think it's a big problem for this team for sure.
Scott, I heard it's your birthday today. Happy birthday, brother. It's good to talk to you after an Eagle month. And,
Thank you, Ryan.
Yeah, we talk about the lack of deep threat and the passing issues, and I'm a little bit sick and tired of hearing that as an excuse, although it's very legit, but I'm still sick and tired of it. But you look at the past game, and Zach Ertz is the weapon on this team going into this season for sure, but he's been held in check the past couple weeks. He finally has somewhat of a breakout game, definitely a breakout game, 103 yards and a touchdown. Talk about the Wentz and Ertz connection finally elevating and really, leaving an impact on a game in a win.
Well, I don't think it's a surprise that they weren't connecting in the past couple of weeks, because I think what teams were showing was without the deep threat, they can kind of really clog up the middle. And I thought that's what was going on, which was preventing Ertz from having too many opportunities. And when he did, there were very, very tight windows to try to fit the ball into. But yesterday, going to go back to the Bears planned on DeSean Jackson being a part of the game and having to defend accordingly. And that's where I think Ertz was able to get some of his. Certainly it happened later in the game. And at that point, the Eagles had also established a running game. So that helps too. And within the last weeks, in my opinion, it's because they were able to control the clock. They had the run, and their defense was playing well, faced what I would consider to be, and I think many would consider to be, subpar quarterbacks. That's not going to be the case in the next 2 weeks. So the defense is going to have to up its game, and somehow the Eagles are going to have to try to get Ertz involved. I think this offense runs a lot better when Ertz is involved, and I'm talking about even just 4, 5, 6 receptions. It doesn't have to be 9. But you give him 4, 5, 6 touches, you have to pay attention to that. And I think that's what this team really needs to kind of try to do, continue to run the ball, obviously, with Jordan. I like the way Jordan Howard and Miles Sanders are really complementing each other right now, and I'm sensing more and more of a chemistry between the two guys, even in the locker room. And I think that's big as well. So there's definitely a lot of things trending in the right direction on this offense, but they got to be careful and make sure they do continue to get Ertz somewhat involved, because he doesn't have to be in the game plan all the time, but you need to have him at least getting those 3, 4, 5 catches. Definitely a third down option for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And just to stay on the topic of the passing game and Wentz. Now, you give him a grade of a B yesterday, and it's just his season has been so strange because you look at his numbers, and his numbers are playing well. I mean, at home, I think he has 1,000 yards, 7 touchdowns, no picks. Yesterday, he's 26 of 39, 239 yards, a touchdown. But the offense is not where we want it to be. So talk about what you saw from Wentz and really just his overall performance from start to finish. Does he need to improve? Are you completely content with what you've been seeing?
Well, I would never be completely content, especially if I was Carson Wentz. But what I do say to numbers is, 26 of 39, not so bad. But imagine what it could have been if Alshon catches that one pass, if Aguilar catches some, if the drops aren't there. It could be even better. And that's where I look at people and I hear some of the complaints or criticism of Carson Wentz occasionally. It drives me crazy because for as great as everybody thought this offense was going to be, he's missing DeSean Jackson. And as a result of the deep threat, we highlighted what that does to the rest of the offense. But he's also still getting the ball to guys for passes that should be caught, and they're not caught. And it's, it really does kill the momentum on these drives. It was nice to see them start off well, move the ball early, but they couldn't finish those first 2 drives. They're lucky that didn't come back and bite them at the end. There were 2 field goals instead of at least even one of them being a touchdown. But you look at Wentz, and what I see as a guy who is managing the game pretty well. Like you said, he's not turning it over right now, and I think quite to do. If he can keep this all moving, if the backs and the offensive line can churn out a few yards each time, occasionally Wentz converts some third downs. And what I like especially, and this is to me the highlight of the last 2 weeks, in the fourth quarter when they needed to eat up time, they went on very long, time-consuming drives and basically suffocated the opponent out of getting the ball back. And sometimes you got to win that way. And really, I think championship teams have that ability. So I've been encouraged by the fact that the offense has, when the opponent's running the ball, they're running the ball. In Carr's credit, when he sees the ability to go run and get close to or get across the chains, in that final drive, he's done it. And I think those are big moments for Carson Wentz that we've seen perhaps a little bit of growth. He's taken those yardage and he's gotten down to avoid the hit. That's definitely big in my mind.
All right, Scott, 10 of 21, 125. Trubisky that inept or Eagles secondary improved?
Little of both, because I think because he was that inept, the secondary was able to, they didn't have to cover for long yesterday. Look, Trubisky's eyes, if you watch some of it, it was look down at his first read and then, oh my God, where's the pass rush? I'm about to get killed. And he would take his eyes off downfield. It wasn't until late in the game that, it wasn't too late, but he connected on a deep ball. I mean, how bad is it that the Bears can't convert and complete deep balls, but they did yesterday. Trubisky was able to get one downfield. And a lot of that was, I think, partly the game plan for the Eagles. They basically said, we dare you to try, and good luck if you do. And he did. And okay, fine, you got one. But most of the time, I like the Eagles' game plan, which included just get back there and harass Trubisky, get him off his mark, make him move around. And on that deep ball, a designed rollout, which he needed to find the time and the space to step up and deliver the ball.
Yeah, and he got Avery out there, too, with a sack. Yes, he had some pressure. I know he didn't play all that much, but it was good to see him.
Yeah.
Fletcher, I mean, they did get some pressure up front, and you just kind of hinted at it that, look, their secondary can be what it is when those guys pressure you, it's a different game. Now, I know Trubisky was terrible, but some of that is because the Eagles forced pressure.
Yeah, exactly. And why did they? Well, because they're getting healthy. And you talked about Denard Avery. Well, Avery, you're right, didn't play a lot. When he did, he was a factor, and it's because he just got here. And his snap count to raise and go up. He certainly brings a little more of an added dimension. Brandon Graham is continuing to play at a high level. Fletcher Cox, to me, with Jernigan back in the game, Fletcher looked to have more of an impact. Again, not through his stats, but I saw him bull rushing his guy straight back into, and again, Trubisky then was moving because Cox was getting his man in his personal space, and so I think that was all collective. Look, let's get Nigel Bradham back in there, and I think we're going to start to see even more stuff happen. They stopped the run. David Montgomery couldn't do anything in the first half, and that allowed them to constantly force the Bears into passing downs. And when the Eagles knew that, and I've been saying it, this defense is built to play with a lead. And they did that yesterday. They did it well. They did it against Buffalo. They got to try to find a way to get up early on New England and try to play with a lead and harass Brady.
Scott Grayson's grades are posted at 97.3ESPN.com. Speaking of Avery, I think he played 3 plays yesterday and got a sack on one of them, or a half a sack. So I don't know how much of the defense he knew or what, but they told him go after the quarterback. He got there, got a half a sack, and we'll see. Also, the full grades are up at 97.3ESPN.com, but one guy that I do want to get to real fast because you gave him a poor grade was Nelson Aguilar. You said he continues to frustrate you, but how much are they going to have to count on him, at some point to make this offense work?
They do. I just don't think asking him to go downfield is the right move. He can't. He's self-admitted. Didn't see the ball on the one play in Dallas where he didn't, go and try to lay out or even try to get the ball. He didn't see it. The trajectory was too high, he said. Okay, well, then he's clearly not the guy to send downfield and try to track the ball. So find a role that he fits. And look, he did make some really nice catches on some shorter routes. And I think that's where his strength is going to be at this point. So don't ask him to do what he can't do. It's okay to ask him to do that one end around occasionally or a jet sweep that they tend to do. Fine. Don't go to that well too often. But here's the problem. Alshon Jeffrey didn't finish the game yesterday. Without DeSean, you're just Alshon, who's occasionally a guy who gets banged up away from your receiving core being Matt Collins, J.J. Arcega-Whiteside, who they don't go to, and Nelson Aguilar. And Aguilar trying to, I guess, be your top guy at that point. It's not where he is going to thrive. So, they've got to, I think, find and design a better role for him to be more successful in and stop sending him downfield because it's just not working. He isn't drawing the pass interference, despite his acting abilities or lack thereof, and he isn't catching the ball. So,
yeah, you're right.
Again, I say find a role that fits for him. I think he can be serviceable, but you don't ask him to do things that he's not going to do.
Scott Grayson, of course, Fox 29, Grayson's Grades, and, of course, every Monday with Grayson's Grades. The Eagles at the bye, 5-4. Read more and get the video interviews from inside that locker room. What kind of locker room? Was it a playful locker room? Was it a business-like locker room? What'd you see?
Yeah, I was telling Josh before I came on, it was a locker room that was satisfied and not pressed because they knew they got the win, they won their last 2 games, and that they have the bye week coming up. There's no opponent staring them down right now, so I think these guys were pretty relaxed and to say, okay, let's regroup, let's recharge, and come out with the second half of the season, essentially, and go win this division.
All right, Scott, always great work, man.
All right, thanks a lot, Mike.
Scott Grayson, the All guest, appeared via the Boardwalk Honda hotline.